We are live. Well, recording live. So when you see this, it'll be recorded. But anyway, this is the Vampire Fantasy Football Forum. It is the reaction from what happened in Week 11 in the around the NFL and upcoming waiver wire for Week 12. We are combining these, and there is some excitement, and it correlates between what we saw and this time of the season, what we need to be doing, how we operate the waiver wire for our fantasy team. You might be clinging onto a playoff spot and needing a win now. That affects how you operate the waiver wire. You may be out of playoff contention, but if you're a competitive person, we play fantasy football. If we're competitive with how we do things, I sure hope if you are out of playoff contention and you are still listening, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Hopefully you get some enjoyment out of this and learn something new potentially along the way as we what am I trying to say? As we try to recreate what our process is, as we're trying to guide our way through how we look at football, how we see fantasy football, and how we look at the waiver wire, especially coming up as playoffs. They might be this coming week. They might be starting next week, or they might be 2 weeks from now. Depends on your league size. But if you're a team that, if you are a win away, if you're needing a win to get into the playoffs, if you're fighting for that position, you see guys, maybe you're one of the teams that got affected by injuries this past week, where maybe Najee Harris went down on your team. Maybe Travis Etienne went down this week for you. Maybe you're one that has some of these late buys. Maybe James Conner's on buy for you, or DeAndre Hopkins for that matter too. Kyler Murray. We need to be prepared and understand how are we going through this week to go get a win. Maybe you don't need a win. You might be battling for position in your playoff spot. Maybe you just started battling for a better position than what you had. Maybe that doesn't matter to you. Maybe you're just kind of coasting, but you're also then looking at who are the guys I need to be looking at adding that will help push me to that championship. Because there are guys, there are players that we have on our rosters that, as we look at, and this is really the best time because we have the most data points to look at upcoming schedule and say, this is favorable or this is not. Me telling you in week 1 or prior to this, well, this is a favorable playoff schedule. My answer in week 1, I should have said, no, I'm not answering that if I was asked the question. But my answer would have changed because I have more data now. We see trends. We see what is coming. Like, we see how players are utilized. We see things that we didn't know before. And while we try not to be too reactionary on this show, we try to be kind of forward thinking. We are not going to see everything. In fact, we're going to miss probably 85 to 90% of things. But we want to be prepared for what we see and not be totally surprised when it happens, right? So for shallow leagues, I mean, you don't have as much in terms of, well, I need to go get my handcuff, or I need to go get this speculative ad, or I need to go get this deep play guy that they're being talked about for sure. But there's an element too of, I need to take my guys that I have, prepare that if they are injured, or if I somehow cannot get them to help me produce, or I'm afraid of some schedules. Dameon Pierce is actually one of those guys that, while I think he has a good matchup this week against Cleveland, because all running backs have a good matchup against Cleveland. After that, it gets kind of hard. So we have to prepare ourselves for, how am I going to prepare long term for this, right? What if Travis Etienne is actually not okay, like the coaches say? What if he's actually hurt? What then? What if Michael Carter can't come back from his ankle injury? What if Najee Harris somehow can't go with his abdomen injury? Then what? Is the best play to take just the backup? Right? Because that's what's being said. You should have the handcuff. You should have the backup. Maybe. There might be some options though to say, hey, I need to go get this other guy's backup. I like the situation better. We'll talk about that a little bit too. Excuse me, as I seem to be dealing with the weather's changing here where I am at, where in the caverns that we at Vampire Nation record from, and it gets cold here towards the wintertime, towards the late season, but I digress. So let's talk through what we saw. We saw this is not, if you heard this over other podcasts, if you heard other people say, well, I've not seen it in a season like this, there's just so many injuries. So many guys are going to go down. This is just, I've not seen this. Pause, stop. Go back to last year, around the same time, listen to those same podcasts. I would dare bet you that was said then. This is not new. This is something that happens every year. Football is a violent sport, and we love it for its violence and not violence as person to person. It's violent just because of the nature of the sport. For that, we love it. We like seeing guys be okay getting tackled, but a hard hit, we like seeing that. We like guys safe, first of all, yes, but football is a violent sport, which means injuries are going to happen, and we should not be surprised when they do. We don't celebrate players get injured, whether they're on our team, on our rosters, fantasy football, or not on our rosters. We don't celebrate that. We prepare for it. It could happen to anybody on any roster. So we have to prepare for that. This year is not like any other. This year, I actually think is a lot better as far as injuries go. So if you're not hearing that, I applaud those other podcasts out there that are not saying, well, I'm not seeing injuries like we've seen this year. I've just not seen it. There are a slew of big name players that are injured. Elijah Mitchell went on IR. He's probably done for the year. Let him get healthy. That'll be good. Christian McCaffrey's apparently still has knee soreness. So is he 100%? Will he still play? Those are questions you have to answer, especially if you have McCaffrey on your team. J.K. Dobbins is apparently scheduled to potentially come off IR. Okay, we'll see if he stays healthy. Travis Etienne had a foot injury. Reports are that he can come back. He could have come back for that game. Well, okay. They're taking their time. What's to say they don't take their time? And, well, let's let him miss 1 week because we want to make sure he's fully 100%. 1 week turns to 2 weeks. All of a sudden, you're now in playoffs. If you haven't prepared for that, you're kind of stuck. I'm not saying drop Travis Etienne. Don't do that. But you have to prepare that you can't use him. You can't start him on your fantasy football team. What if Najee Harris gets shut down because, well, he had a Liz Frank injury, and then his knee, now his abdominal. It's done. Okay? Now, for those that operate in a shallower league, you have a lot more options available. For shallower leagues, you still have guys. You potentially have Isaiah Pacheco out there. He shouldn't be. He's potentially out there on your waiver wire. If he is, go pick him up. He's the guy that could start this week for you. You should go do that. You should go still be stashing guys like Samaje Perine to back up Joe Mixon. What if he gets re-injured? What if he's there? You want to invest first of all, we've seen the data. You want the guys that are in good offenses, that are productive, that have fast pace. We're not looking for just touchdowns. We're looking for opportunities. Opportunities create touchdowns. The more opportunities a player has to see the ball, whether it's a running back getting rushes or passes, or wide receivers getting passes, we want the opportunity. More opportunity equals more opportunity for scores. This is what separates offenses at this time of the year. I'm more excited about adding players from, let's say, the Jets than I would be the Rams. That would not have been said in week 1 this year. Let's remember that. The Jets, James Robinson was a healthy scratch. Michael Carter had a low ankle sprain, which is good. And it's never is good for ankle sprain. But if you have a low or high, take the low, not the high. Because if it was a high, he'd probably be done for the year. Low ankle sprain, he might be out for a week, maybe 2. We'll see what happens. But there's also replacement guys out there as well. So, again, I'm not going to tell you in short leagues who to go get because you should go look at it. Look at the production. You should be getting Najee's handcuff, Jalen Warren. I would prefer Jalen Warren over Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland. We saw Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland. We've seen that show. If Warren, even if he's not fully healthy, you need to stash him because he has looked better than Najee Harris has this year. It's just a fact. He has looked better, so you should go stash him. Deion Jackson is the backup to Jonathan Taylor. If something were to happen to Jonathan Taylor, you need to have a plan. James Cook. Talk about guys. This isn't necessarily a handcuff. This is a running back in a high-prolific, high-profile offense with Buffalo that you want a piece of. And he's been getting more reps. So you want to get people like that in your lineups or at least stash on your roster. If you think Josh Jacobs is actually hurt, you need to go get guys like Zamir White. If you think he's going to be it, if you think it's Amir Abdullah, whoever is the next on the depth chart, you need to go get him. I'm more inclined of guys like that than, let's say, Melvin Gordon, who just signed with Kansas City to be on the practice squad. That doesn't excite me as much. I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is going to go anywhere. I think he's going to stay the starter. Where the Melvin Gordon signing makes sense is more a NFL type signing. Pacheco is a rookie. He is still figuring out blitzes, pickups for blocking, all of that stuff where he's going to get it figured out. It's probably not going to be this year, but this is why a guy like Jerick McKinnon is in on third downs and pass catching duties because that's where he needs to play. So Melvin Gordon could play in some of those where he takes some snaps. I don't think he actually takes a lot of the rushing share, though, away from Pacheco. He's younger, he's faster, and he doesn't fumble as much. Now watch, I just jinxed him, so watch him go out and fumble. So that's where I look at the waiver wire this week. If you're in a shallow league, make sure you either, if you don't have your running back's handcuff, you have a replacement level player that you feel confident if your guy goes down for a running back, you're going to be able to plug somebody else in and get almost the production that you feel confident in to be able to go win still. You need to have a backup plan for every single one of your players. If you feel confident in a quarterback, stop rostering multiple quarterbacks. If a quarterback goes down, you end up having to stream them. There are options, though. Tight end, if you can pick up guys like Tyler Conklin, Noah Fant, it's pretty ugly if you're streaming tight ends, but you got to find the right offense to do it. Conklin may be a really good guy down the stretch. I think the Jets are a good team to target for down the stretch, especially with Mike White at quarterback. So to get kind of in the meat of all of this, right? Deep league. That's what we want to talk about, right? Deep league guys. It all comes down also to what I was talking about too for shallower leagues. Shallower leagues have a benefit where they have so much available to them to be able to go out and get, right? Deep leagues, though, especially if if the guys aren't available, you have to be really picky. If Jalen Warren's dropped, go pick up Jalen Warren, because if Najee doesn't go and Jalen's able to go, you would rather have Jalen Warren stashed away than Benny Snell or Anthony McFarland. Don't go after those guys. For San Francisco, if you're really concerned about Christian McCaffrey, it is Tyrion Davis-Price, but let's not forget about Jordan Mason, though, especially deep leagues. Let's not forget about Jordan Mason. He was getting the run over Tyrion Davis-Price before. With Elijah Mitchell going down, there's going to be one of these guys that steps up. If Christian McCaffrey ends up having limited snaps, don't forget Jordan Mason as well as Tyrion Davis-Price. One team I really want to talk about, I'm very excited to talk about. This is probably one of my top ads for this week, right? Ty Johnson did get work with the Jets, yes, but Zonovan Knight, and you heard that correctly with a Z, Zonovan Knight, that is the preferred back that I would have out of New York. He, will be able to get you run this week. Minnesota allows the 7th most points to rushing running backs and the 3rd most points to pass catching running backs. Zonovan Knight is bigger than Michael Carter. He catches the ball. He is the guy that will take the lead in the backfield over Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson's been in the league a long time. If you're in a very deep league, you still go at Ty Johnson, but my priority would be Zonovan Knight for this week, for potentially the rest of the season, because of the fact that, one, James Robinson was a healthy scratch. He may not be fully healthy from recovering from his Achilles. That and an ankle sprain can turn into a lingering problem where Michael Carter's not healthy. So if you have Zonovan Knight, you all of a sudden have, one, a really good schedule, better than the guys on San Francisco. And if Mike White's on leading the way for under center, then that's a better team. You also should go look out if Elijah Mitchell is there. I know he only had 2 catches. One of them was for a touchdown. They were big-time plays. Elijah Mitchell for a wide receiver, go out, snag him as well. There's a lot of guys you can talk about. If you really are desperate and you really, need somebody, you could go get Kyron Williams for the Rams. I don't love it, partially because I don't like the Rams. Without Matthew Stafford, without Allen Robinson, you're really looking at maybe starting Tyler Higbee, but this is a preseason team roster that we have. And that's nothing against the Rams, but they are depleted. So, one, they're going to be a good team that if you have a team facing the Rams, great, that's fantastic. They're still a decent defense, but not as good, especially if Donald ends up sitting out. For the other team in LA, the Chargers, you still need to make sure Sonny Michel's probably picked up unless you're in a shallow league. Isaiah Spiller's coming on. Joshua Kelly is coming on. You need to stash those guys in case Austin Eckler ends up going down. There's a lot of just in case because we don't know. We can't predict injuries, so you have to have some just in case. If Travis Etienne is legitimately hurt, we don't know this at the time that I'm recording it. All we know is he could have come back. Well, we've seen other players say that they could have come back and not be able to come back for another week or two. JaMychal Hasty is the guy you want, not Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson, when he was on the Rams, and that may be team-specific, but I think it's also player-specific, he is in the bottom tier of the league in rushing proficiency, meaning yards per carry, what yards, everything rush-wise, he's in the bottom of it. He's not good at rushing. JaMychal Hasty catches the ball. He showed that to you on Sunday against the Ravens, and he rushes the ball. That is a good game environment, so if you need a win this week, JaMychal Hasty is the top ad in my opinion, where Zonovan Jones is right below that as far as potential for this week, and then also rest of the season as well. That's pretty much some of the high level of running back as far as what could be available. I'm not going to go team by team because you need to go look. You go see what's out there. If you want to look at Baltimore, if for some reason somebody dropped J.K. Dobbins, add him. He could come back. Right now, this is Gus Edwards' backfield. But like I said, don't just look at, well, what's next man up? Be prepared that if you're starting running backs, so if you're starting 2 running backs, or let's say you're starting a third one in the flex, if you're 2 to 3 starting running backs got injured, you would have a backup. And yeah, it's probably not. So if you have like a Derrick Henry and he for some reason gets hurt, oh, the next guy up isn't going to be as good. Well, there's always those guys that come in late in the season and push teams for fantasy drafts or for fantasy championships. A couple of years ago, I think it was, who was it out in New England? I'm blanking on his name, but it was a guy from New England. You were out picking up on the waiver wire. Okay. Why don't we go do that? Like, be ready. You're not always going to get it right, but you've got to have a shot at putting yourself in the position to be able to have a shot at it. If you're in a shallow league, I'm going to switch it over to wide receivers. If you're in a shallower league, Mac Hollins is a really good ad because I know he's a number 2. Mac Hollins is a good ad because it's a good team. It's a good situation. I don't care that the team's not winning. We don't necessarily care wins and losses NFL-wise for fantasy football production. The Raiders have a good team for fantasy football. I like Mac Hollins better than a guy like Nico Collins for the Texans. And I like Nico Collins as a player, but his situation is bad where I don't feel confident playing him. Same as I kind of hold my nose sometimes playing the guys from Indianapolis, where you kind of have to hold your nose a little bit and say, yeah, I'm going to start Pittman, and yeah, I guess I'm going to start Paris Campbell, but it's kind of gross, and you don't like it. I understand Michael Pittman had a really good game on Monday night. I get it. You can come at me with that. I don't care. I rostered Michael Pittman in several leagues. So I am right there with the pain. I have to deal with that week in and week out. Don't be surprised, though. Be ready. Stash Jameson Williams on the Lions. Go grab DJ Chark. He showed you what he can do. They're playing the Jags this week. DJ Chark is going to take that Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond role where he's going to be that stretcher outside of what Amon-Ra St. Brown can do. DJ Chark's going to be a good ad this week. On the Philadelphia side, stash Quez Watkins. It's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but since there's no Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins becomes that third role. He's in there in 3 wide receiver sets. Philadelphia is not passing it to the running back position. That means there's opportunity. And I pray nothing does, but if for some reason Smith or A.J. Brown get injured, Quez Watkins all of a sudden becomes a lot more usable. So, be ready. If you're in a shallow league, hopefully Treylon Burks is already stashed up. Hopefully he's already off there. In Buffalo, you could also go get Isaiah McKenzie. Khalil Shakir is a handcuff if you're in a deeper league, so don't forget about them. Like I said before, Elijah Moore with the Jets. I think the Jets have one of the best wide receiver schedules for the playoffs in fantasy football, so go get him. It's going to be Garrett Wilson. It's going to be Elijah Moore. Mixing a little Denzel Mims. This really could be a good offense coming down the stretch. Again, look for ways to differentiate that if a player of yours goes down, that's who you want to be able to have say, I can put this guy in, and I know I'm still safe. This is still a good thing. We have to be ready for that now, though. We should have been prepared for that. Go out. I'm not talking about some guys that I've already talked about, but if Zay Jones is out there in the league, you should have already stashed him. I've been giving you Zay Jones for probably about a month now, if not longer. His production's been there. He keeps showing that his production's there. Donovan Peoples-Jones, if you haven't got him, it's probably too late, but you better go out and see if he's out there. Deshaun Watson comes back. That's going to up Donovan Peoples-Jones' value. Got to go get those guys. These are guys that all the guys that I've been harping on as far as for a month now. If they're out there, go get them. If Christian Watson's out there, go get him. Even if it's Jordan Love on the ball, not Aaron Rodgers. It's a potential. There's potential. He has that potential of taking two to the house. Yeah, he's not getting the target share. I get that, but when you need a ceiling play, sometimes fantasy football is one on ceiling plays, not just floor plays. We have to know how to read defenses. This is what we're looking at. So, anyway, that's what I got. It's kind of a jumbled thing. There's really, I kind of bounced around the order that I had, but it's really exciting this week because a week like this shows us how to prepare best for the playoffs. And that, again, I can't say it enough. It's taking account of your roster, knowing how, whether it's I have to take the player's handcuff that because I like the team, I like the situation, and the handcuff is actually also really good. For example, Jalen Warren, that would be a good one. Or I'm going to take a guy like Zonder, right? Xander or Zonovan. Ugh, I forget his name now. Zonovan. I apologize if you are listening. That is my mistake. But I will take a guy like Zonovan Knight, and I will roster him. One for this week, because it's a good week, good matchup. It's a good team environment, and it could be good the long term. So we've been trying to think long term. We've been trying to practice that exercise all year. Think long term, think long term. This is where we put that muscle memory into play. Long term means fantasy football championship. What do I need to get there? What do I need to win? These are the steps we need to do both. Good luck out there. Hopefully you're able to get the guys that you're after. Hopefully you're able to secure spots in playoffs, and let's get ready for the Week 12 prep coming up later this week. We'll see you guys later.